Well, a student was like 7-8 foot tall, maybe 500-600 pounds, and with 6 of them in front of me, going in circles, taunting me.
Okay, we're here at the Dutch Hunters Rendezvous in Apache Junction, Arizona, and I've got Salvador. What's your full name?
Salvador Delgadillo.
Anyway, Salvador spent a lot of time here, helped all the different treasure hunters doing some digging, but he has a story that really interested me about giants. And so with that, Salvador, take it away.
Okay, I come to Apache Junction 5 o'clock in the morning on March 17, 1982, arrive at Cub's restaurant, and I walk all the way to Tortilla Flat, and I spend the night at Tortilla Flats, behind Tortilla Flats, and the next morning I went on top of the mountain and then come down, and I was warned not to light a fire and hide. So I look up the sky and everything looked beautiful, and I say, I don't see nothing wrong. So that night I hide and I don't need a fire, and all of a sudden I thought people was coming out because I saw shadows. All of a sudden the shadows were like 7-8 foot tall, maybe 500-600 pounds big, and I noticed there was not shadows, was like what some people would call black energy or black fire. I call it black fire, other people call it black energy. And the hair looked like her natural until the hair, what I call the hair, went up and down like a fire like this. And with 6 of them in front of me, going in circles, taunting me. And I thought it was only 6 until I felt somebody thumping top of my rack where I was hiding 3 times to let me know that I was there. I wake all night praying to God that I see the light, because I knew once the light show up, they would go away. So that night I was asleep, and the next morning I went looking for footprints. And at night time they looked like they walked, but when I was looking for footprints, there was no footprints. So I took out there and followed the Lower Lavash back, and I wound up in a mountain I don't know the name about, but today it's called Bluff Spring. And when I was there, I heard what I thought was Mexican speaking broken English and broken Spanish, saying that they bury a white man in the Sandy Watch. And I'm saying to myself, well, if they bury him, what is going to happen to me? And I saw like 10 feet away, and they was have long hair up to here, not what I call shoulder length. They have like a Fu Manchu mustache, little bit here thing. You ever see a true photo of the Aztec, you will notice they got like little here, and just little here, the rest look like clean shave. And they was kind of dark, and there was 2 of them in a pair that was wearing like Tarzan, no long clothes, but like Tarzan, what I call Tarzan, pants. And they was wearing high, like the Apaches, knee-high boots, moccasins, we call it boot moccasin because they a mixture of moccasin and boots mixed together. And then they were wearing like a cowboy vest with made a cloth, no t-shirt, no nothing, just like the vest. And one thing that caught my attention, which I can understand, they was wearing the quiver that hold the arrows was like yellow deer color. And the bow looked like it was made out of iron wood, which I thought was kind of strange because iron wood is very hard metal, it don't give. And they went up the mountain, and I followed them for a few feet, and then all of a sudden I realized how stupid you are, you don't know the mountains. These people already killed somebody, what's going to happen to you? And I went out, so I know what I can tell that. And then one day I went about 15, 17 years later, I was in Cub's restaurant, and this guy told me that he works in Area 51. He told me a story about Area 51 that I don't want to repeat because I don't want to be called crazy. And I had the feeling to follow him. Across the street, an Apache Trail used to be a place called Sambos, and today he called Villachin. And he was talking to the same people that I met 17 years before. They was wearing the same clothes and looked like they vanished one day.
Really?
And I would say I was like from here to your truck, and close enough to see them, you know, close enough to see their eyes. And I went to the right because he was facing the restaurant, facing the restaurant, pointing west, east, pointing east, and they was talking about that. I never saw them again. But these people, their bicep was like this, their life was like this. They was like they lift weights all the time. And I called them the little people because that's the closest thing about the little people I've ever seen. They was about my height. They were not tall, but they looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, bodybuilders.
But they were about your height.
About my height.
They weren't a couple
They
feet
were not
tall.
here.
Okay.
So when people talk about the little people, I say the only little people I've ever seen is that. And people ask me, well, where you saw them? I say, hey, this is my second day in the mountains. How do I know where I was at? I come up Fremont Saddle, right here, Fremont Saddle, follow Peralta Road, walking. I don't know my way around, and with no way I can tell my story because who will believe me? A guy come from nowhere, spent 2 days in the mountains. He see what today we call the Black Legion. See the little people with about my height. They said that they buried somebody in the watch, and I don't even know where to look for them. So that's one of the many untold stories about the Superstition Mountain that need to be told because you never know what you encounter.
So since then, you didn't know anything about the Black Legion or anything like that at that time, but since then you've learned a little bit about these guys, or they've showed up before to other people. Can you got any stories about other people seeing them, or what the hit stories or?
When I come out right here on Fremont Saddle, and I went past the dance club. Right here before the dance club is a parking lot, and I saw people having a campfire, and I went there to them. And this guy was reading the German tarot. I don't know how to pronounce it in English. Tarot card. We call it the German tarot cards. And we start talking about that, and he asked me if I have any experience in the mountains, and I told him about the Black Fire people, and he told me, "Do you know who you met?" I said, "No." He's called in the Black Legion. First time I ever heard the Black Legion. I just been in the mountain for a couple of days. Now I don't know my way around. And he said, "How do you know the Black Legion?" I said, "Because some people talk about it." And first thing he asked me, I said, "Do you practice Black Voodoo?" And I said, "Yeah, I practice Black Voodoo. I learned that in Key West, Florida." And he said, "You're very lucky because that's what saves you. If you don't practice Black Voodoo, they told you it was one of them." So, what is true, and what scared me the most, after he told me that, he burned the tarot card in front of me, and I said, "How can you burn them?" And he, in a kind of nasty way, he asked me, "Can you read and speak German?" I said, "No." He said, I read and speak German, and I read the German tarot card." And he kind of led me to believe that he would never want to read them again. That like I was assigned to stop doing it for whatever reason. But he scared me the most when he said, "Oh, you meet the Black Legion," and I don't know what the Black Legion was all about. I know that I call them Black Fire people. And he won the German cars, and for a person to, on my way of life, to burn tarot cards, it's like saying, "I don't want to practice whatever I practice no more." That scared me the most. And that's the first time. Before I even get out of the mountains, I found out about Black Legion, and since then I heard different stories, but everybody seemed to talk about them different times, different places. The second time I met them was like 20-some years later, because I've been here for 36, a friend of mine told me that he lived somebody by the Gila River, which is by that way, by Florence, and something that scared them. And when I went there, they leave me there. They were supposed to leave me for a week, and the tent got double zipper. The one was fully clothed, solid clothed, and the second one was for the mosquitoes. And they leave me army cot. And they leave me a foam like that because I forgot to bring my sleeping bag because it was warm, but that night was cold. And I covered my face, and all of a sudden I feel a hand grabbing my ankle and pulling without hear the zipper going up and down. And that was, I thought I was dreaming. So this time I don't cover my face, and I put the foam all the way to here. And it was like this. And all of a sudden, the same hand that I saw right here in Lower Rabbi went through full time clothes, the mosquito cloth, grabbed my hand and pulled me 1 foot. Just like that. One pull, and I was at a foot, and then pull out, and then when I checked the tent, was no rips, no nothing. Whatever it was, it went to the tent without ripping and then come out. And then I heard noises outside that I don't say what I call it noises, but like what the American call guru, like boo, boo. And that was my second night. I spent all night awake praying to God to see daylight, because I knew I faced one before, but I saw them six and one on top of me, which I don't saw. This time I only saw the hand, but I knew the message. The message is don't play. And of course I know my lesson, because years later I'm still here.
So they say that these Black Legion, are they here guarding something, or what are they doing, do you think? And how tall were they?
I would say, if will be. You see that red brick over there? Yeah. I will be by that red brick, 7-8 foot tall.
7-8 feet tall.
And that and wider than that.
So, I mean, they're just found around here. You haven't heard about them anywhere else, and they're maybe guarding something, or are they just three-dimensional living here, or they're just living here?
Well, let me explain you a part about that. I learned the arts about Black Voodoo in Key West, Florida, and when I asked the Cubans to come here with me, they told me, so Salvador, we're scared of Superstition Mountains. And if we're scared, we don't do you no good, so I had to come along, because I was planning to bring a Cuban friend of mine who was a Cuban voodoo man. And she told me, Salvador, if I go with you, two things going to happen. And I said, what's going to happen? Either you're never going to find the treasure, or if we find the treasure, as soon as we uncover and I see a glint of gold, I'm going to die. Because we don't have the energy to fight what is in Superstition Mountains. So these mountains are known all over the world.
So you specifically came here to look for the treasure? Yeah,
treasure. $100 million in gold bars. And you do your research like other people do. Father Kino come looking for that after that, and he never found them. And if you go to the library close to you, wherever you are, it's a book called Father Kino's Journal. And in it, he talks about, he followed the San Pedro River all the way from Sonora, Mexico, to the junction of the Gila, and he make a left turn, and he talks sextant readings, from the stars, they call it, like that, from the stars. And for some reason, his guy told him that they was following the river, and all of a sudden the guy told him so that they had to go inland. And they went inland and went around by Florence, and then wound up at the junction of the Gila and the Colorado River. But the funny thing about it, that everything, if you know your time, era, and year, and what happened, and you kind of piece it together, you will find out today something that appears in the stone maps, Peralta stone maps, and that's what the Indian don't want him to see. See, once you know your area and you know enough of the area, the Indian don't want him to see the heart that you see in the stone maps have an arrow pointing this way to the right. But when you go to the Gila River, the same heart, the arrow point the opposite side. So who is right? The stone maps are right, or the we call it Heart Mountain. And you can see in Bob Ward's book. And that's what the Indians don't want him to see. And one time I talked about the Indians about that, you know, and I was at the Texas Golf Field, and there was Pima Indians people there, and I told them about the story about the $100 million in gold bars. And they told me that they was guarding it. And I said, and if I found it, they will know about it. And I say, how are you going to treat me if I happen to find it? I say, it depends on your attitude. So the Pima Indian knows about it, and according to them, every generation, a Pima Indian, he gets elected or volunteer, whatever he volunteers to get
to be guardian.
To garden. So that's what I tell people, you know, life is like a jigsaw puzzle. You know, you need to piece it together, little by little. And treasure hunting is the same way. It's a game of life. I don't have all the pieces, other people do, and the reason we meet here at the Lost Dutchman Mine Hunter Rendezvous is to share stories and try to work together to a point that we can come and complete the puzzle. And that's why we're here, to share experience, share stories, share days, places.